Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking to you about this new moon taking place in the sign of Cancer on the 5th or 6th of July 2024, depending, of course, where you are on the planet. This new moon is quite serious, and this is a bit of a joke. It is serious more than one way. Well, first of all, if we take it seriously, there are quite a lot of positive aspects in the sky around this time. So even those really positive, harmonious, flowing aspects that don't necessarily speak directly to the new moon, no problem. They still offer an advantage. They still offer something positive, a potential, an opportunity, a coloring, symbolically speaking, where we add a touch of inspiration, a touch of soul, a touch of heart, something Cancerian ultimately to the equation. And Venus being in the same sign as the new moon at the time of the new moon is already a wonderful energy. Venus loves being in the sign of Cancer, and Venus also holds a conversation of harmony, a sextile with Uranus, Uranus being in her sign of Taurus, and she herself being comfortable in the sign of Cancer. So this is quite a good energy. Now, if we want to add another good layer to this, um, Venus also holds a trine with Saturn in fellow water sign Pisces. Saturn is retrograde. And that is also wonderful because retrograde, especially in Pisces, well, this does bring up the past or any kind of energies that do need a certain kind of finishing touch on them, especially those energies which are very much Piscean like, ethereal, a thought, an emotion, a dream, something very subjective, something internal, psychological, or even if it's something quite real, concrete, of course, depending on where this Pisces, especially this 19 degrees of Pisces where Saturn is, falls in your personal chart, even if that area of life is something which demands the energies to have a concrete shape and form. For example, I don't know, like sixth house, physical health, or daily routine, or second house, or ultimately material value, or the five senses pleasure. Um, Even if it's like an energy which has to translate one way or another into something more concrete, something more material, it still is very much fueled by something inner. You know, for example, a faith, a standard, an opinion, a principle, a worldview, an inner, basically, interpretation of reality. So, long story short, this is really, really good because it gives a energetic but also emotional Cancer and Pisces emotional energy, but also Saturn, the realism of it. Um, how should I say? Not, I don't want to necessarily say material, but rather earthly, telluric, or reality oriented charge, way of expression. So that is really, really good. And the other reason why this new moon is so serious is because it takes place exactly on the fixed star Sirius, a fixed star which is perhaps one of the more notorious stars in any kind of astrology or any take on astrology. Um, Ancient Egyptians perhaps attributed the most spiritual emphasis on Sirius. So it is also known as a dog star. It is, regardless of how we look at it, it is quite a magical energy, a nurturing energy, emotionally fulfilling, so to speak. Why? It's light, because ultimately, light, the truth, the creational force, kind of leads us to the most appropriate form of nurture for our being. And that principle can translate to so many diverse forms that are very, very practical and useful in so very many ways in life. Because the act of nurturing is not just physical, soul nurture, heart nurture, nurturing your passion, nurturing the creativity of your mind, nurturing friends, family in so very many ways. If you are someone who works at the public, you nurture the public basically through words or whatever it is that you share. So nurturing um, can take many shapes and forms, and it can be understood more than one way. And speaking about nurture, well, there is another more active, let's say, power player in astrology, which is about nurture and is part of this new moon Ceres, so planetoid of grain, Demetra, uh, which ultimately can be linked to nurturing, opposes to the degree this new moon. So it is also, for us perhaps to bring something new to the table, right? New moon. Or a new moon is also notorious for the darkness because the moon is not going to be visible in the sky. It is dark. That void, so to speak, is really, really good to eliminate things that do not serve us. So, that which we want to cast into the shadow of the moon, of the new moon, for it to swallow, uh, basically symbolically take it into the realm of the unconscious, so forgetting it, of course, symbolically speaking. Well, that can very well apply to anything that has to do with diet, anything that has to do with uh, our own nutrition, foods that we used to consume, or anything that has to do with, dietary purposes. And now we may have a totally different, not necessarily just opinion, because this is not a mercurial energy. So, not just facts, not just something that is pure information, pure facts, data, and is shared to us by someone or we come across it. Nothing like that. It is more like an inner understanding or a spark of the intelligence of the body where it just knows what is good for it, and it also knows what it doesn't need all that much anymore. So this new moon can also be experienced by a change of diet, but not necessarily where we are the 100% promoters of it, where for that's exactly Ceres and Capricorn. We decide that I need a change in my life, and I make a list and I research Capricorn, the Capricornian way. That may be partially part of this because Ceres also brings her Capricornian traits to this opposition. But at the same time, there is also exactly new moon on Sirius. The body, or better said, Cancer is symbolically always the breast, but the breast is very, very important. This is where let's take the gender stuff away from this. Let's just understand it philosophically. So the breast, you can imagine the great intelligence within it, because it is basically the laboratory, the flesh and blood laboratory, which produces the most nurturing substance that nature invented, basically the milk, the breast milk. So that is literally, not just symbolically, very, very literally life-giving. So you can imagine this is where our bodies tell us something, time for a change, and Ceres in the sign of Capricorn listens. You know, that's how Ceres brings her contribution to this opposition. After she understands what the body is telling, she can adapt. She can add a touch of Capricorn to it. This is the best possible expression of this energy. But of course, collectively speaking, in mundane astrology, from that point of view, well, Ceres and Capricorn, those who are responsible to nurture the masses, organization, or the function of the state or an international community, who must provide nurture and food and stuff like that. Opposition, this, if there's a deficit here, and we know that there is, if there's a problem here, we know that there is, then this new moon has to offer solutions. Saturn trining Venus, but we can also say that Saturn trines the new moon, even though the degree is very, very vast, but the moon will perfect its trine with Saturn after the new moon in a few hours, and the sun will perfect its trine with Saturn uh, a few days after the new moon. So the trine with Saturn, even though at the moment of the new moon is not very precise, it is growing in power. So it is a really, really good seed point. And Saturn in Pisces can also be substances in blood, the liquids in our body. And Saturn is no retrograde, a turnaround, understanding um, our own inner configuration, hormonally, or the substances in our blood, exactly the nurturing factors, what nurtures us, even biochemically speaking. That can be a massive upgrade in one's health, one's mood, overall mood, psychological state. Because when there is harmony within our blood, the water in our body, basically, then you can imagine that harmony will translate to the invisible parts of our body. Basically, it will uh, have an effect on it. It will project its state. So that will represent happier thoughts, more elevated thoughts, less fears, and embracing basically the best what life has to offer, and being that much more resilient to the hardships. So that is a really, really, and this comes, more naturally, because it is already hormone, serotonin, or whatever other good type of hormone in our bodies. So you see how nurture and us understanding our body, us being connected to our body, is indirectly part of this energy, and is so very helpful. But and Sirius, the conjunction at Sirius, makes this, how should I say, that much more benevolent, beneficial. It is almost like everything in the universe around the time of this new moon is wants to help us in their own unique way, for us to achieve this stability, is great, a greater well-being, if that makes sense. Now, why? Because we'll need it. We will definitely be needing it in the days and weeks that come after this 5th or 6th of July. Because on one hand, Mars, let me just show this in the chart. Mars is getting near to Uranus, and when they will form the conjunction, that's when the game is on. Personally in our lives, collectively speaking as well. Uh, Also element of surprise. Uranus, Mars, everything's on fire. We need to achieve big things. Chances are in our personal journeys, our personal stories, or at least that area of life where this 26 degree, 27 degree of Taurus is going to fall to. And for some people, this is where the change, the sudden, the unexpected movement forward is dragging them along with almost like um, I'm not sure how you call that sport where a boat is basically pulling you on water skis, and you have also like a parachute type of thing where you are also floating. You get what I mean. For some people, this period will feel like that. Like all you can do is have tighten your grip maximally and try your very best to hold the balance. And when your balance is, going so and so, don't panic. Or for other people, they will have to battle change. Well, why? You can imagine there are people with a lot of fixed energy in their chart. Change is okay, and even if it dawned on them already that there's nothing I can do but allow change to come into my life, yes, but not like an avalanche, not like a landslide, not like a hurricane. They, you know what I mean? Change needs to be not like life and nerve wracking for people, for those people who have a lot of fixed energies in their charts. It won't be comfortable, so they have to partially, you know what I mean, fight against the change, the uprooting, the upheaval, or however this Mars and Uranus conjunction will appear in their lives. While other people, this is where it may be an inner energy. So many ideas, thoughts, eureka moments, or something creative wells up from within them that they don't even, it shocks them. They don't know what to do with it yet. So you can imagine, for some people, it's almost like they're going to be stunned. Other people, this may be like, let me, a sensual, more erotic area of life. You can imagine that that will hit you like a thunderbolt. Let's say a person who is Uranian ultimately, and who's gonna keep you for a few months in their gravity, like as I said, like almost like a lightning bolt hit you. You're stunned. Isn't nothing bad ultimately in life, but be aware that things can be very, very intense around that time when Jupiter, sorry, Mars and Uranus, not Jupiter, are conjuncting. So a few days after this full moon, sorry, new moon, uh, the conjunction is already tightening and tightening, but also the time frame is under the effect of the creational energy of the new moon. So whatever nurture means for us personally, let's embrace it, let's take it in, let's allow these energies to fortify us, feed us, embrace us, Cancer, toughen our defenses, make ourselves more stable, more resilient, more stronger in one way or another, in one area of life, whatever strength means for us personally, because very soon things are gonna get intense. Even let's say, even if Let's say you have absolutely nothing at that degree of your chart, neither Taurus, neither other fixed signs, you're lucky. However, you live in a community, you live in a country, you live amongst people and amongst energies that are very quickly changing, evolving. So there will be something around you that will be intense, even if your life, as in directly, will have nothing to do with it. It can come from family, Cancer. New moon in Cancer. Okay, I'm speaking about the Mars and Uranus conjunction right now, but for some people, it can be exactly the fourth house, their fourth house. So very much Cancerian. It can be your country, something happens in your country that even if it doesn't impact you straight away, it can surprise you, it can shock you. You might have to arrange your life financially, economically, in so very many different ways, sometimes in the most positive way. Certain rights that you didn't have before are now bestowed upon you. Of course you will use them, of course you will change your life and your setup to very much Taurus as well around in order to embrace that. So yeah, we will end the negative side of this calamity, earthquake, volcano. Mars will conjunct Algol. Uranus will conjunct Algol. So at the same time, both of these planets, okay, not precisely, but will hang around Algol. Algol, a notorious fixed star, the demonic, etc., etc. But it also represents the head of something. And how can this energy play out? Well, on one hand, a long term leader who had great longevity either steps down or falls one way or another. It doesn't have to be tragic, doom and gloom or anything, but maybe they step down. They have health problem and they will step down. This is an example, so it doesn't have, but at the same time, it can be where a new, exactly the new archetype of leader. You remember great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in 0 degrees of Aquarius in 2020, December 2020, the new paradigm that Saturn, the leaders, the father symbol, those who have to keep stability. That implicitly means that new types of leaders will appear in the next 20 years. Next 20 years, calculating from 2020, of course. So we are in that comfortably. So this is one of those moments when a new type of leadership, etc., can simply arise. Uh, but also, let's not forget Saturn, because Saturn is retrograde, and Saturn holds a trine, as I said, with Venus. So this also represents that Venus in the sign of Cancer, that can be seen as emotional intelligence, not in a mercurial way, but rather in a Venusian way, in the sense that everyone has certain needs and we have to accept this. This is where we cannot ask someone, don't be hungry. You're hungry? Oh, don't be hungry. No, you have to offer food. Venus brings the empathy. Venus brings the compassion. Also, Saturn retrograde in the sign of Pisces is pretty much the same thing, but in a Saturnian way. Let's make it real, but even compassion has to have limits, rules and regulations, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And this, because the retrograde Saturn, we can make things right where we might have failed in the past. So Mars and Uranus conjunct together is an upgrade, regardless of how chaotically, violently, disruptively, turbulently it comes. An upgrade is an upgrade, giving us the chance to make things that we couldn't do or we couldn't succeed upon or complete in a more perfect way, or we failed at them, or we couldn't even attempt solving them. It gives us a chance to put things right, to put our mistakes right, our trials and errors. So this is a really, really good energy. And if there's a whale Mars, then we can use this in a very fantastic way, as I said, collectively, to amend the mistakes of the past. And that past can be a few years ago or a few months ago. You know, if certain leaders made poor judgments, the new leaders who take their place or who arise, well, will definitely solve that which the old leaders couldn't. So this is, and Cancer, the people, the sign of the people, borders, ethnicity, country, nationality, etc., etc., culture, the past of a nation, the past of a country, the past of a family, personally speaking. Pisces also the past. Saturn is also the past in a certain way. So this is where we can actually do a lot of good with this energy. This is why the seriousness of the energy, if we take it seriously, we can do a lot of good with it. If we don't take it seriously, it can be pleasure, it can be delightful, but at the time of this new moon, Mercury opposes Pluto. Not by the degree anymore, it's a waning opposition, but Mercury is quickly moving, so it's still very much on. We understand something with the heart and both the mind. Pluto in Aquarius is mental energy, but it's higher mind. And Mercury in Leo is heart. And the opposition is exactly the understanding. From these two planets, of course, Pluto is the predominant one, but something sinks into the heart. You know what I mean? Even if that may be sometimes intense, harsh conflict, verbal confrontation, it is the type of confrontation where the truth sinks in. We understand something. So that's really, really good. Um, Another energy that I would like to mention is that if we necessarily want to call it, there's also a grand trine happening in the sky. So we have Saturn in Pisces. I'm gonna include only Venus because the new moon is at 14 degree and Saturn is at 19 degree, if you know what I mean. So Venus is much closer to the energy of the trine. And there is another trans-Neptunian object at around 19 degree of the sign of Scorpio, but the thing is I can't pronounce its name. It is a Zulu, so an African tribe, fertility goddess, but her name is where the not even the letters make sense. Letters follow each other that shouldn't follow each other in European grammar. So I and it's very long. So I can't even spell it out, not even pronounce it. But anyway, it's great. Fertility, you know what I mean. Um, Saturn and fertility energy in a trine. That means that something is created, something is put right, abundance or joy or pleasure, or Saturn is a sacrifice principle, right? So when Saturn is in a good conversation, well, the sacrifice is fulfilled. Let me give you an example. Saturn as a not direct sacrifice. Your wife worked all day, right? So she's tired. She performed the Saturnian duty, right? So she herself needs to be the recipient of your sacrifice. So you can choose your offerings: flower, dinner date, beautiful words, etc., etc. But this is like a water trine, right? Even a grand trine. So Venus in Cancer, right? Remember emotional intelligence, empathy, knowing what type of sacrifice is the best for your wife, because your wife is a certain archetype. Not every archetype appreciates the flower. Not every archetype appreciates you doing something for them the same nature what they did for you. Like the wife washed the dishes, you vacuum. Not every archetype works like that. Some wives say that I'll do all of this because I know how to do it better. You do something else. You do something of your skill and talent. Like other archetypes appreciate exactly the words, the poetry, the oratorics of the husband. Other archetypes appreciate the dinner date. Other archetypes appreciate a more sensual type of gratitude. So this water trine, not just know what archetype the wife is and give her the best possible expression, but amp that up, wrap it up in something really, really Venusian or Saturnian. A Saturnian in the sense that you know that satisfaction is guaranteed because it's one of your wife's hobbies, passions, obsessions, or the fertility goddess planetoid in the sign of Scorpio. This is where you can also know your wife's shadow, as in the guilty pleasures, as in, oh, let your hair down, you know what I mean? So this can turn into a really, really beautiful energy. And we can use this in, if, again, I go to my original joke, the seriousness. If we take it seriously, it's that much stronger. If we use this energy for another person, it's that much more efficient. For a family member, for someone who we love, charitable things, someone who we want to help. It's a really, really good energy. And there is something else which I love about this. Jupiter in Gemini, right? That's already very, very helpful because it connects us. And every effort or every even desire that we want to connect, Jupiter in Gemini finds us the proper ways. But besides Jupiter, we have Sedna in the sign of Gemini. Do we have, actually, let me just take a look at this. Because it is also Sedna's retrogradation period. No, it's not. Actually, Sedna is still in Gemini at 0 degree. So there's that trine with Pluto. But there is something else that is between Sedna and Jupiter, and that is White Moon Selena trining Pluto. That's so very beautiful because that means benevolent thoughts, blessed thoughts. Very rarely is the lower mind, Gemini, the mental sphere of our lowest perception, elevated to a more divine pedestal, so to speak, white moon Selena, if your soul has a purpose, a dream, something it wants to experience, but white moon Selena, the opposite of black moon Lilith. So it's something selfless, higher than you, something altruistic, something the best of the best that the soul can offer. You know what I mean? So the mind finds a way to envisage that and then to enact that. Pluto encourages this. Pluto in Aquarius retrograde. Well, if technology can't help, but chances are technology can help, especially in this day and age. But let's say if technology is not the option, there is synchronicity, because Aquarius is humanity's collective consciousness. Okay, the manifested form is the internet, but there is also something. Now, how should I explain this? Which is like the internet, but is invisible. Our own psychic network. Or, as I'm not even sure if this is an appropriate term or if this is just sci-fi and fantasy, that psionic neural network. Well, even if that is fantasy, that's in a way real. Animals, bees, wasps, ants, termites, etc., have it, and even mammals, colonies of rats, mice, other rodents, they act the same way. So, and we have it as well, but ours of is much, much more superior. But that superiority means it's not all that much. Um, well, it is physical, but it's not as exactly Lilith in Black Moon Lilith. It's not the more primal. It is something that we need to work hard to access because it means it yields power. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here. So us being able to tap into humanity's collective network, well, it can be done either through hard work. One of them is Sagittarian way, Jupiterian way, Jupiter and Gemini. Study, study, but to the degree of absolution. The other thing is the other how should I say method is spiritual. Connect to the divine or to any spiritual source, nature or whatever, until you get an elevated perception where you just know what is going on in humanity's collective consciousness. You just know by breathing, you know what I mean? Any kind of very experienced spiritual person, religiously or not, for after a certain age, they will just know, regardless of what they follow and practice. They will just know. And that is what I'm talking about. Humanity's collective consciousness, through synchronicity or whatever, will find the way to give you the best possible connections in your life. So I'm really loving White Moon Selena here. Mars holds a sextile with Saturn, a precise sextile, and Mars is in the Earth sign of Taurus. I love this because this means manifestation, making things real, not just dreaming it, not just wanting it, not just thinking about it, not just feeling it, but doing, making it real. And Saturn retrograde in Pisces, putting the mistakes of the past right, forgiveness, but the things that we do for it. So this sextile is one of the best energies. Why? Well, a few weeks after, the same planet will square. Mars in Gemini will square that Saturn. If we put the mistakes of the past, that which life offers us, opportunities, karma, the lives of other people, the karma of, doesn't matter. Every effort that we take to put certain things right, when the Mars and Saturn square comes along in August, it is that much easier. It is that much more rewarding. It is that much more where we just, life reflects our wisdom. We get the good stuff. But it's no problem if we miss any opportunity under the sextile, because the opportunity will come back when the square takes place, but it will play out in a different way. So putting things right, closing the past, but actively working towards it in a harmonious way to make the very forgiveness, or if we made some mistakes, as I said, working for making amends, whatever that means. And last but not least, I would just a second, because there is another aspect that I wanted to mention and I forgot. Saturn also holds an exact trine with Pallas Athena from the sign of Scorpio. Again, I love this energy so much. Pallas Athena, wisdom, tactics, knowledge. Scorpio, research. Any effort that we made to have knowledge, to have a clear vision, picture, understanding, power over something, to get where we needed to get, any effort in that sense now rewards us handsomely. So this is intuition, instinct, wisdom, any type of wisdom, regardless of what type of knowledge we bring to the table. Just sheer inner knowledge, sheer subjectivity, but that which we distilled and worked very hard on, or research, or proper learning, or a uni degree. Why not? Real effort to learn something, or any type of understanding, research, knowledge, facts, effort, Saturn, that we brought to the table. And Venus is in the sign of Cancer, the elevated principles and feelings, the altruism, why we need that in our lives. It is like a big blessing. But remember, we need it. Sorry, we need the wisdom, we need the blessing, we need the nurture, whatever nurtures us. May it be love, sympathy, sensuality, gratitude, our family, a proper feast. Someone takes us out for dinner, someone gives us food, someone compliments us, someone loves us, someone, I rather not say the rest, but anything is soul food. Anything that the other person wants to give us, offer us, or do to us in good nature, good faith, good nature, not aggressively, or even if we cannot accept it, the gesture itself is a soul nurture because the compliment. So let's use that to empower ourselves, but more importantly here, empower an altruistic purpose, because ultimately that's Cancer, the community, the family, the other, someone who we want to nurture. Sirius, but can the moon is home in Cancer. Moon is the symbol of motherhood, and the mother, it doesn't not just nurture in body, a mother nurtures in every possible way. It nurtures her child's mental sphere, emotional sphere, even passions, because the mother encourages the child to go and play and learn and be useful. It nurtures the child's Virgo side in the sense that aptitude, skills, talents, learning, anything that the child has to develop. It also nurtures the child's self-discipline, where if the child does something which is harmful, well, a constant discipline that the mother provides, you can imagine, that teaches the child, and it nurtured the child's very own self-inner discipline. So this is where you can see why everything about this new moon, the sign, the moon itself, the fixed star Sirius, the exact opposition to Ceres, everything is nurturing here. And remember the fertility goddess, trans-Neptunian object, whose name is unpronounceable, and I think not just to me. This one is unpronounceable for most non-Zulu people. Um, Fertility, nurture. And this is where we get to the Sabian symbol, which is like a huge a huge, I don't know how to pronounce this, feast, sorry, a huge feast where the guests are, of course, situated. This is so symbolic. Why? On one hand, a feast. It feeds people, the symbolism of nurture, but also a huge feast. And people are almost overfed. That's prosperity. That is big prosperity. That's reward as well. That is where the group of people, without a doubt, they celebrated something or commemorated something, or they took a well-deserved break or a well-deserved celebration after something they completed. Even if we don't know the exact story behind the feast, we know the symbol of the feast. And the fact that everyone is well fed, the fact that everyone is almost a bit overeaten, this represents that sometimes in life, it is about the good things. It is about prosperity. It is about abundance. Nature in itself, the universe in itself, is abundant. Poverty, scarcity, malnutrition, ultimately, is not nature's design. Nature didn't design poverty. The divine didn't design poverty. None of the opposites are actually all natural principles. However, we need to embrace those as well, as much as we embrace the principle of prosperity, because it is the opposites that sanctify one another. Without a bit of hunger, without a bit of scarcity, without a, even if that is self-inflicted, you know, when you are working, when you have a task, a chore, and you are absorbed in it, you're not gonna be having snacks and 5 minutes breaks. When you're really immersed into your work, you're gonna do that. Hunger or whatever is not gonna stop you. It is gonna be the scarcity, the poverty in that sense that you take upon yourself, but it's sacred, it's sanctified. But neither can we exaggerate, because embracing poverty, scarcity, hunger, whatever, in the sense that we make it divine and sacred, that's not gonna do us any good. Neither is embracing only prosperity. Embracing two extremes cannot do us any good. But embracing them in our own unique understanding of balance and serenity, that's where it's on. Why? These two principles can be like the two claws of a crab. And usually many crabs have a bigger claw and a smaller claw. The smaller claw is scarcity, but it needs to be there because we need to know when to sacrifice. And the big claw is prosperity so that we can enjoy prosperity, but in its most healthier and divinely intended sense. So I'm loving the Sabian. Let's know when to hold the feast. You know what I mean? Because the feast was preceded by hard work or by something that we are celebrating. So thank you so much for listening. I'm wishing everyone a really, really magical new moon where you cook up something magically, alchemically, emotionally, artistically, or in a real sense in your life that will feed not just you, but all your loved ones. And remember to set an intention for everyone because Pisces, Saturn in it, the spirit of communion, everyone is just a brother sister really soul on a soul level. And then the Cancer new moon where whatever feeds you, you extend that onto the collective. Your happiness is the collective's happiness. So thank you everyone, and until next time, bye for now.